Good evening and welcome to the fifth webinar series of Leadership Conversation by RBSA. It's no more a slowdown. It's rather contraction of economy. Rating agencies are forecasting negative growth in India. Global economies are also in turmoil. The banking sector, which is the spine cord of any economy across the world, is also under tremendous pressure. Today, consumers are not willing to spend, but they want to deposit their money into public sector bank. They are actually on cash conservation, capital conservation mode. Corporates are unwilling to borrow and invest. Given the demand deficit, they are being risk averse. Is this a recessionary loop? How do we break it? It's a challenge to rebuild the economy, and government is making every possible effort to make India self-reliant. To share the regulator's perspective on how to overcome the challenges arising out of this unprecedented time and devastating impact of lockdown, we have today with us Mr. S.S. Mundra. Mr. Mundra retired as a Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank of India in July 2017. After completing a stint of 3 years. Prior to that, the last position held by him was a Chairman and Managing Director of Bank of Baroda. In banking career spanning over 4 decades, he has several important positions. He held several important positions during his career span. And this important position includes, but not limited to, Director of Union Bank of India, Chief Executive Officer of Bank of Baroda European Operation. He also served as Reserve Bank of India's nominee on the Financial Stability Board and its various committees. Mr. Mundra was also Vice Chair of International Network on Financial Education, which is an initiative of OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Mr. Mundra has a regular presence as a speaker on various forums across the country and overseas. Amity University has conferred the degree Doctor of Philosophy honoris causa upon Mr. Mundra in recognition of his services in the field of banking and related areas. He is now on the board of Bombay Stock Exchange, DSP Investment Management, Indiabulls Housing Finance, Airtel Payment Bank, Equity Rating Research, Ayana Renewable Power Private Limited as an independent director, besides being on various advisory boards. On behalf of RBSA and all participants of this webinar, I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kanadia.
We also have today my colleague Suchi Smith Goss as a co-moderator of this session. Suchi Smith is a managing director in investment banking team. He carries about 24 years of experience covering investment banking, corporate development, business development, and equally had worked in SBI Caps as well as Ispat Industries. He has worked successfully on investment banking vertical and concluded transaction in M&A and financing, which covers across the industry, various sectors during his professional exposure. I'm quite confident that next 1 hour will be quite interesting for all of us, having Mr. Mundra's view on the topic of the webinar, since he can analyze the situation from both the angles, as a banker as well as a regulator. Once again, I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. In current pandemic situation, RBI is displaying conventional prudence and responsibility. It has taken a series of relief measures to ensure that the impact on the private credit sector in India is mitigated. These measures broadly include introduction of long-term repo operation facility, reduction in repo rate as well as reverse repo rate, increase in the investment limit for foreign portfolio in corporate bonds, provided special liquidity support to NBFCs, non-banking financial institutions, as well as the microfinance companies as well. The shock absorption measures, which include basically restructuring mechanism, which includes providing the reliefs, uh, providing balance sheet provisions in the to take care about the NPS and many other different measures. Sir, how far do you think this will ultimately meet the objective of this object purpose?
Thanks, Mr. Canaria. An interesting question and a very wide-ranging question. Practically, I think if we try to capture this question in all its dimensions, probably we can spend the whole seminar time on this. But having said that, I must say, to begin with, I would say I must compliment Reserve Bank of India that, like many other central banks in the world, at the first sign of stress emerging and what we are facing, they have taken a slew of measures, a flurry of measures from time to time. And you must have seen that for a good change, they have not only been proactive with the action, but they have also been proactive with the communication. I think in times like this, communication becomes as much important as the action. So having said that, a number of measures have been taken. But if I put my perspective from both sides, if I put my hat as an ex-regulator as well as an ex-banker, then I would like to mention that ultimately effect of any measure is tested on the ground, how it is put to the operation. And in doing that, it is, I think, always very important to, when you introduce a measure, to have some consultation with the practitioners on the ground. So while I must say that RBI has taken a number of action, have done quite good, but to my mind, I believe there are quite a few things where probably action could have been more sure and more clear. I'll just give few instances. I won't go into great details, but I still fail to understand that after announcing all the measures and particularly moratorium, why RBI kept on dragging its feet on giving the same thing to NBFCs. And they have been very ambiguous about it. And I don't believe that that ambiguity has been cleared even today. You know, when NBFCs have been asked to provide moratorium to their clients and denying them and say that they will be catered through different market mechanisms, and when we know that our market mechanism is anything but perfect. So that was something which I really failed to understand. Similarly, you know, a small matter you must have seen in last 2-3 days, that when you are surrounding a moratorium, what to do with the interest during that period. Finally, they came with the clarification on that it can be capitalized. But ultimately, see where it has led now. It has led into litigation. And now something which is purely a regulatory and executive matter is being examined by judiciary. With due respect to judiciary, I don't know how much they would be able to appreciate the block building of, you know, various banking practices. So that was the second thing. Third major area, I would say RBI, if you recollect, in first circular, announced certain measures for the MSME to be relief to be given in working capital. So one provision was that margin can be reduced. It means when you work the DP, what is called as drawing power, the margin can be reduced. There was also a provision that there can be a reassessment of working capital. Now, reassessment of working capital, what does it mean at a bank's ground level? That you are prepared to accept a larger level of inventory, an inventory older than a particular period, a larger cycle of receivables, a receivable longer than the normal period. These are all the components of reassessment. Now, while they did it, at the same time, government also announced that package, if you remember, 3 lakh crore, 20% ad hoc package, which is given to MSME. Now, try to visualize at the ground level how these two things will go together. whether they will be in addition to each other or one would be a subset of the other. That is other thing. Moreover, if working capital is to be reassessed, can it happen in any manner other than case-to-case basis? Because all the cases are not similar. So either you should have a very broad policy, a board accepted policy that this is how the margin would be reduced, this is how the working capital would be recalculated. In absence of all those things, while it looks a very strong and good measure on the face of it, but when it comes to the ground for implementation, it fizzles out. And I'm sure if today you examine the cases that how many people have got the relief and how much amount has been given by this, I don't think that figures which will be coming would be very encouraging. Similarly, within working capital, there is something like what we call as NFB, non-fund based limit. There are LCs, there are guarantees. What will happen if LC is crystallizing during the period? What if there are import LCs? I'm to say I can keep on giving a whole laundry list of it, but these are some of the things which needs to be taken care in greater details, so that implementation, the policy which you announce becomes implementable. Other thing is like moratorium. Moratorium was given for 3 months, then it was given extended for another 3 months, but again no clarity. So every bank institution either took the ground that moratorium is available if asked for, otherwise it is not available. So they started telling that everyone should apply for the moratorium. Then RBI in some communication said no, it is there for everyone. So there is a whole area of confusion. To my mind, it should have been simple that moratorium is available to everyone unless someone is specifically asking that I don't need it. I think that kind of thing would have been much simpler. Now, as a result, what is happening today? The business is a end result of several components. So now moratorium rating agencies are looking from a different viewpoint. So if moratorium is availed, it is somehow getting drilled as a negative action from the rating viewpoint. So all this put together is making these measures less effective than what they could have been with a much clearer articulation and policy around it. But having said that, these are some of the practical things. But in some sense, I believe Reserve Bank of India is right, because all of us are very conscious that we don't know what is going to be the dimension and duration of this problem. And we don't know, you are not going to employ all the tools are available to you in from the word go. You have to keep your powders dry. You have to save those measures. Once you know what exactly is the problem, then you can apply. If I conclude this question, my sense is the way things are today and as I see them, I think a situation would come where RBI would have to look to allow something like a one-time restructuring. But I agree, this is not the time, because when cash flows are not visible, when the clarity is not there, how do you restructure a loan? But when that stage comes, probably one-time restructuring would be needed. That is one point. And the only other point, to my mind, ideal cycle in situation like this, let us believe, there is no precedent. The precedent available is 100 years back in Spanish flu. That time economy was very different, interlinkage was very different. So we can't draw any conclusion from that. There is no precedent. We have to find the way. But ideal things, this is a time when there is a crisis of confidence, not of the liquidity. So four players have to play their role. RBI has to provide the liquidity. Government has to provide a backup support so that there is a confidence to give credit, and banks have to provide the credit. And banks also have to provide credit to NBFC so that they can provide credit to the further sector. Because let us be very clear that a large part of important segment in this country known as MSME is not largely catered by the bank, it is catered by the NBFC. So this will be an ideal combination which, if it put in place and implemented effectively, it will work. That's the point I would like to make.
Sir, I fully agree with your views that there are certain more clarifications, if it had been made along with the measures, probably it would be more useful, and probably more clarity can be given to the users and beneficiary. That is always there, sir. But still, sir, as you have rightly said, RBI is working very hard on that. And sir, my question here is little related to that only. In this COVID-19 scenario, sir, how do you see the regulator trying to balance two contradictory things, sir? On the first, on one hand, it is easing of the credit underwriting norms to support corporate activity, and on other hand, sir, they also have to manage and control the stress, and which was already there before this COVID, and under this pandemic situation, again, it is gonna to be little more stress over there. So managing both the things at a time simultaneously is a challenging task, sir. What are your thought process on that, sir?
No, I absolutely agree. Actually, I want NB to be in RBI's seat at this point of time. It is a very difficult balancing act for them to do. And unfortunately, we have entered into this cycle when we were already not in the pink of health. The problem, unlike 2008 crisis, 2008 was not a real sector crisis, it was a financial sector crisis. Its dimensions were different, its prescriptions were different. This time what we have entered into a health crisis, a real sector crisis. And officially also we had the NPA figure in banking system at around 9% when we entered into this crisis. Forget about the NBFC stress level. I think we have to go a little beyond the declared figure of NPAs there. So maybe easily, and some of the forbearance was already allowed by RBI even before COVID in case of MSME and all that. So broadly, if I put a ballpark figure, stress level within banking system itself was around, let's say, 11% or so when we entered into this crisis, which is a very huge stress level by any reckoning, and which cannot be handled by any band-aid things, by any conventional methods. Now, there are certain estimation that because of the COVID, finally, if and when we, not if, but when we emerge from this, maybe the stress level in financial sector could be something like 20%. And if that is the estimation, it will be a very daunting fact. So, as I said, number one, whatever is being given now is only to be seen as a survival package. It is allowing the units to survive during this period, and then once you emerge out of it, I think it will require all the collective might of both the monetary authorities and fiscal authorities to handle this situation. But having said that, if I don't miss my word, let us not be unduly optimistic. My sense is, out of this, because it has come on the series of a stress, on the series of some other measures which were taken, from which the business is still yet to recover, I think this pandemic on business front is going to take many casualties. Is going to result into many casualties. I am not talking about in the terms of human casualty or health, but the business casualties. I think many enterprise, whatever you say, whatever you think about, they are going to suffer the existential threat. So banks ultimately would have to be very careful about choosing that which is a case which can be supported and which is a case where you should better cut the loss rather than throwing good money after bad money. I may sound harsh, but at least my understanding and my experience say that this is what we are going to see.
Sir, I fully agree with you, sir. I take the gist of the discussion which we had, sir. In the first part, sir, you have mentioned that it is not a question of liquidity, it is a question of confidence. And the second part is that we are going to see lot of casualty, which is business related casualty. So, sir, mixing of both the things would be probably my view, and sir, I request for your views on that. If RBI is taking every measure to introduce liquidity into the system, and bank are actually flourish with the cash. Cash is not a problem. Liquidity is not a problem. Still, for stress corporate, actually who probably need the cash the most at the moment, access to this liquidity may be very, very difficult, sir. So what should be exactly done, sir? If we have to create some framework, what kind of colors we want to see there?
Okay. Again, it's a very large canvas, but I take you back to my first question, my first response, that what should be the ideal combination? And I said RBI can only be expected to provide liquidity. To expect a central bank to provide a credit backstop is not something which can be done. That credit backstop can come from where today? It only can come from one entity, and that is the fiscal authorities. So see, problem is not about the liquidity, and problem is, ultimately a bank doesn't have infinite money, and the money which bank is having is not its own money. Banker is only an intermediary. They have the depositors' money. So ultimately, whenever they have to support some, they have to, first thing they have to worry about is the recovery of their money, whether it is going to come back or not. And as you said, the business are stressed. The business which were already stressed, they are having more stress. A banker would need to examine that if I put more money in this business, whether it is going to come back tomorrow or not. And even I would go to the extent of telling that even today's rating of an entity is not relevant. A bank will have to do a visualization that what is going to be the rating 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months down the line. So that being the case, I think two things will happen. As I said, see, there will be three kind of institution entering into this crisis. The institutions which were already having a very stressed position, and COVID has further deteriorated their position. Second, the organizations which were otherwise doing all right, only COVID has created a short-term problem for them. Within that, there will be two categories, that some of the business were such that because of COVID, they have got a long lasting damage, which is not going to be, repaired very soon. And others which were not hurt like that, there was no fundamental damage, and they will, emerge out of it. So for a banker will have to look at all these and support the cases which are likely to emerge. Now those, and other thing I said, then in the process, there are bound to be some casualty. If those casualties are to be minimized, again, mind my word, I am telling minimize, not eliminated. I don't think in this crisis you can eliminate all the casualties, but if you have to minimize that casualty, then various non-conventional measures will have to be seen. Maybe, some of these may be looking like a loud thinking, but maybe government may have to create a special entity. That special entity can, infuse funds in these kind of entities with no immediate repayment obligation after 3 or 6 months. It could be even the nature of some kind of equity, and it may be repayable as per the cash flow of that company in the future. They may be given this relief, and they may be given some future offset in their taxation, where from this loan can be repaid. So, there is a whole possibilities are there, but those are the possibilities which only going to work. If you think that by RBI certain measures and by the conventional banking system, all these problems can be overcome, then it is not good. At least I am not believer that it is going to happen that way. These problems would have to be sorted out by very out of box thinking, very unconventional measures, and that is why it needs a wider debate, wider consultation, collect many such options. I have just given 2, 3, and then think through that what can be done out of it.
What's your view, sir? So not only banking sector, sir. I think post this pandemic, my view is that all the industry, most of the business and most of the industries need to rethink about their what they were doing. what the legacy practice, the traditional practice needs little more innovation. Probably the most across the system, the changes are inevitable and we need to upgrade ourselves for the new changes. I fully agree with you, sir. Suji, I will take some pause over here and request you to take it further, please.
Before Ghosh puts his question, I would just say that many of our business houses and industry would not only need innovation, they would also need a lot of discipline. And just I'll take some 2 minutes. While I was speaking somewhere else, I said I related 5 things to the corona needed precaution which banks also need to take. And those are: first, corona related precaution is clean your hand. So business, if you translate, do a clean business, not by trying to something doing on GST, some tax evasion, some turnover which is not. So clean your hand. Second, corona is stay at home, don't venture out. So invest in your core competency. Don't keep on diversifying into all those fields where you don't have competency. So stay at home. The third is live within means. Now corona has affected the livelihood of many people. Income stream has come down. So live within your means. So don't go for over leveraging. So you take every personal loan, individual level, every credit card. In business, you really leverage to the hilt, so much so that there is no equity left. So live within your means. Fourth, I say that no handshake. Okay, keep distance. So keep distance from the proposition. You have business in liquidity, you think I'll put in real estate, I'll put in stock market, commodity market, it will double within short time. Most of the time you will be hurt rather than emerging out. So keep distance. And finally, I said at the first symptom of problem, go and consult a practitioner. So first sign of stress in the business, go and consult your stakeholders, your financiers, your lenders. People try to hide the problem, try to keep on giving the profit which is not there, and then they reach to a point of no return. So I thought I'll take this opportunity to tell the audience who are here that keep in your mind 5 corona related precautions and translate into 5 business related precautions. I think in addition to innovation, if these cares are taken post this crisis, it would be good for the health of all the businesses.
Rightly said, sir. Very important message, sir, which has been covered in a capsule kind of thing, sir. It's very simple word, but this is probably which is required to be to get our business success, whether we are into manufacturing or services. If we this is not only the business tactics, but business important essential requirement, but it's what you have covered is the ethical issues also. Keep distancing and all this stuff. Probably it's a quite useful and matured advice. Thank you very much for that, sir.
Okay. Yes, sorry.
Not at all, sir. Always a pleasure listening to you. And the specialist's advice coming both from the point of view of the regulator as also from the typical banker. Sir, we've touched upon this topic initially during the start of the webinar, but I would like to go back to IBC. Sir, IBC was thought of as a panacea to all evil, within quotes, apparently removal of all stress in the economy. It gathered momentum, the dirty dozen problem was solved, and so many other companies were put into the list. Suddenly, in view of this COVID, this is put to a temporary halt, number one. And number two, in its place, no fresh measure or no new measure is yet to be announced. Sir, in the view of all things, we heard you, your prescription, your thinking out of the box theory and all. But when can we expect something concrete from the regulators in this regard, sir? I think the whole industry is awaiting something.
2 things to this, Mr. Ghosh. One is particularly on IBC. let us understand that IBC framework was erected keeping in mind a normal business scenario. No
Sure.
one had envisaged this kind of catastrophe coming, which is, once in a kind of a century situation. That is where the, IBC problem is there. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, we may feel that the entry level or the threshold in IBC was kept very low, which of course, the situation circumstances compelled to raise the bar. So that was the situation
Sure.
with IBC. And now in the current situation where cash flows are so severely interrupted, in many cases there are no cash flows at all. And if you apply the original of yardstick, I think, as you rightly said, a large number of entities would be really pushed to IBC. There will be a complete chaos that hurt the economy. And very frankly, even my view is that even the stress level which was appearing before COVID, our IBC infrastructure was not really adequate to even deal with those stress, which was already sitting in the system. Forget about the stress which is coming. So I think it was very, very important from a economy perspective, from the nation perspective, to put IBC on hold for the time being. I have no grievance against that measure. That was a very right thing to do. Now coming to what in lieu of IBC. Let us recollect, there was a famous February 2018 circular of RBI, I think, which created so much of heat. I don't know whether it generated light or not, but heat certainly it generated, and we have seen a lot of debate. But after whatever happened after that circular, if you recollect, in June, if my memory is serving me right, in June 2019, RBI came with another circular, which was which was a kind of giving a framework to deal with the cases outside the IBC framework. The point I am trying to make it that a framework is already available. Only thing, in view of new elements which are coming from COVID-related situation, probably that framework would need to be tubed a little more, maybe make it more flexible, introduce some more element. So I think that would be needed. But I'm sure it must be already under the radar of RBI. But here I would agree that today is not the time to bring that framework, because I go back to the same problem, same issue. When you don't know the dimensions of the problem, when you don't know enough what is happening, there is no point in putting a prescription now and then keep on changing. So maybe moratorium is given, some breathing period is given, observe for some more time. When we know exactly what kind of issues are coming, that time maybe that framework should be picked up again, and if whatever is necessary, changes should be made in that framework.
Interesting. So that brings me to my next question. Again, something which we have touched upon briefly during the initial discussions. So the concept of this moratorium. So first it was 3 months, then it was extended, and so on and so forth. So do you think this is a very, very thought about process taken by the regulators, and short-term measures are intentionally being announced and long-term measures are being avoided because we cannot project the future at this point in time in a proper manner?
Absolutely, I agree. I don't think there was anything wrong with announcing the moratorium first for 3 months, because there were all kind of speculation that it may be very short-lived and we may be back to normal. When it was visible that problem is not going to go away so soon, moratorium was extended. But as I have been repeatedly telling in answer to every question, we don't know at what point of curve we are. We don't know what is the dimension of this problem. We don't know what is the duration of this problem. So in such situation, the only possibility is to kind of bring a standstill, take a pause, allow the people to breathe. Once you know exactly what we need to do, that will be the right time. And I'm sure, I hope that
Yes,
that is an area where both Mumbai and Delhi both are working on it. They are keeping some blueprints ready. and when the time comes, they will introduce. At least that is my fond hope. And if that happens, that will be very good.
Well, interesting, sir. We hope the problem gets solved sooner than later. Sir, coming to a slightly different issue, today everyone is very, very concerned about the imminent stress in the economy, and which is growing every day, and that too by leaps and bounds. Now, on one hand, we have the moratorium. On the other hand, we have the action taken by banks, infuse liquidity into the system, and the regulator also, which has announced measures enough to make people comfortable and assure them that, look, there is no liquidity is not a problem. Sir, in this light, what do you think is the role of the stressed fund managers and so many distressed funds who are looking at picking up these assets and who are willing to contribute to the upliftment of the economy in general, sir? Your thoughts?
See, as you say, that maybe there are stressed asset funds and the distressed fund. Unfortunately, the way things are, and if things prolong, I think we will have another variety which is more colloquially known as the vulture funds, and we have to be prepared for that eventuality also. But here again, on a serious note, there would certainly be a lot of action on the both part of these kind of funds and banks also. Banks will have to again be very careful. As I said, I won't repeat that, but they have to differentiate between 3-4 kind of things: the business which were already in stress, the business which became stressed, and business which are likely to emerge clearly and remain. Once they do that, actually there can't be a one fit formula for everything. On case-to-case basis, they will have to decide that what are the cases which they can support, and what are the cases where it makes sense for them to cut losses and get out of it. Now, for doing that, what will be the bone of contention? The bone of contention which is already there in the ARC today is around the valuation. Obviously, bank would try to expect as good valuation, and the fund would, this is the opportunity when they would like to take it, throw away price. But I think a good point will be to realize the cash and move ahead. That would be, so it will be a mix. Whenever there is a possibility, banks should try to support and restructure. But where they find that case is really doesn't make any meaning for them, it will be better. But around here again, because these are very unprecedented situations, so both from the regulators and as well as from the government, some more enabling provision would need to be introduced. If need be, the whole framework around the sale of distressed assets and all that, maybe there would be a need, but time will come for that.
Okay. Okay. I'll ask you a few more questions, sir. In the meantime, Manish, if you would like to ask some.
Sure, sir. So, sir, again, I'm going back to the first response in the beginning of conversation we have discussed. Sir, I fully convinced with your statement that question is not a liquidity. Question is a confidence. Sir, confidence will certainly bring and helpful on boosting of the economy and bring all the business back, right? But sir, if we, as we all are aware, Mr. Modi has announced a package, stimulus package last month, sir, amounting 20 lakh crore. So 20 lakh crore is 10% of the total GDP. And again, incidentally, this figure is very close to the complete annual receipt of the total tax by central government. Sir, as we all are aware that subsequently, finance minister has also come with the breakdown of this package over the 5 days. Okay, this is for that, this is for it. Everything he has explained in detail. But sir, what is your view? How this stimulus package is going to help us on developing a confidence in the industry and boosting the confidence and boosting the economy, bring it back to the normal things?
Okay.
How it will happen, sir?
Okay. I think let's get few things right. Number one, there were many good components in this overall. 20 lakhs was an amalgamation of so many things, including some clear fund infusion, some kind of indirect calculation. So it was a I would say combination of so many things. So as I said, there were very many good components in this, but at some point of time, whether effort become to somehow reach to 20 lakh crore, so you do some add-ons for making it 20 lakh crore. But anyway, that is beside the point. But let's understand clearly, it is basically a credit-driven package, and large part of heavy lifting would be required to be done by the banking system in this. That is one thing. If you do some mathematics, then out of this 10% of GDP which we are talking about, the pure fiscal component, which is a real fiscal stimulus, would work out to something like 1.9%, not the 10%. Whatever is credit led, I dealt in detail in beginning that credit led is a good thing provided it happens, and it will happen if there is a clarity, if feet on the ground are understanding and implementing it. So those are the things we have to be conscious. Just to give you a small example, like a 3 lakh crore package for MSME was declared, right? Banks were expecting that it will be a straightforward sovereign supported fund, but anyway, it is sought to be introduced through the credit guarantee fund, which was even otherwise doing the credit guarantee. Now, the past experience of banks don't infuse a lot of confidence in them that tomorrow when they will go with the claim to this organization again, how fast and how clearly that claim would be settled. On top of that, when the package was first announced, I think there was no confusion in the mind that it is purely for a particular sector, MSME sector. Then I don't know, I may be wrong, but I have been reading in last few days that there had been some announcement, some proclamation. No, it is for every sector which is approaching. Now look back, where from 3 lakh was coming. See, the banking sector outstanding of MSME, the defined MSME was around 16-17 lakh crore. So you take 20% of that and that becomes 3 lakh crore. Now, if other sectors are getting included, then 20% is no more relevant. Then who will be given, who will be left out? Then there are NBFCs which have given to MSMEs, where from they would be supported. So, these kind of questions keep on coming. So I will divide in two parts. It was a good package, but to believe that it is entire 10% GDP is not the right thing. We understand in right perspective. The credit component of this package would be meaningful if it can be administered efficiently. And the third important thing, and again, what I said, probably like Reserve Bank, government is also keeping its powder dry, keeping more options open when they will be really needed, and there is time to that. So hopefully there would be other blueprints which are ready and which will be implemented. Only I think I can say when they implement next time, at least they should try to avoid the operational difficulties which can come in something which is announced.
Sir, I think more clarity will come with passage of time. Sir, I'm again going back to the banking system, the RBI regulator and the banks and their situation. Too much of stress and everything. So, sir, in your view, do you think the concept of bad bank is taking a shape in India, sir?
Is a very complex question, and I think it has been debated for a very long time. right from first time. I think it was mentioned in the yearly economic review by the then chief economic advisor, Mr. Arvind Subramanian. Since then, it is being debated. When I say complex, see, as a structure, there may be a need, but the questions are many. First thing is where from the capital would come. Second thing, what would be the nature of this? A public-private partnership, a purely public or a purely private? Who would run the show? Who would be in the control of management? And most vexed problem is the expectation of bank today is that with the bad bank, they would be able to transfer their assets at the book value. Now, I don't think that is a realistic expectation, and that is going to happen, because if that is to be done, two things: principally it is wrong. Second, it needs a huge capital on the part of taker of those assets, that is the bad bank. So that will be a sticking point. The other thing is, on these assets, banks have already created a good amount of provision. Whether the expectation is that I transfer at the book value and reverse every provision and be very happy. The third issue is, again, today when you don't know the dimension, let's say you transfer 10% of your stressed asset to a bad bank, and in next 6 months you accumulate another 10%. Now, what will be the headlines? What will be your perception? Banks are back to where they are. You know, they have all misutilized the money. So those optics are also very important. That what is going to happen, and then blame will come on the government that you have provided capital to bad bank, and now you have to again provide capital to the banks for dealing with this new 10%. So I see it's a good idea, and we don't know. There may be a situation where one may have to think about it. But two things very clear: this situation is not there as of today. It may be tomorrow. And second thing, if it is to be done, it will need a lot of thinking through, a lot of wider consultation, taking the expert opinion. This is not an institution which can be created only by the bureaucracy. That is, I am very clear in my mind.
Thank you. I think it's a long debated question and long debated point. Bad banks, as you have rightly elaborated. It's not so simple to come out with the framework. It's a complex framework, and one need to think through about every angle before we start implementing, start working on that. I fully agree, sir. With the limitations on the time, I would like to ask only last question from my side, sir. That is related to something called society, sir. So RBI is with good intention, regulator are in good intention to keep interest rate at very low, which creates liquidity in the system, which boosts the economy. Everything is correct, sir. But there is another side of this also. Senior citizens, largely in India, sir, we don't have that security concept in like developed country and all this stuff. So here, the people who has worked hard across their lifeline, across their professional career, accumulated money, put into the bank and enjoy their pension days very easily. And largely, all these things are possible. Their livelihood is possible and completely based on the interest which are being generated from the savings which has been done all across their lives, sir. So, sir, lower interest rate probably affects their position, sir. Affects their. Sometimes it may question their livelihood as well. Sir, what is your say on that, sir?
A difficult question, but again, I would say it is something similar like when you introduce some measure in your external sector policy. So either importers will be happy or exporters will be happy. There is no policy which can keep both the side happy all the time. But having said that, let me tell you, number one, let us try to understand the, and in very short, I will deal with it because time is running short. How the components of interest rate works in the Monetary Policy Committee. Ultimately, there is a basic yardstick of inflation which has to be taken into account. It is not a kind of freewheeling thinking that the RBI or committee can decide to lower the rate to any extent regardless of the inflation and other parameters. So there is a framework and there is a discipline. The simple point I am trying to make: let us not look at the interest rate in isolation. Let us look at the real interest rate. Suppose you were getting 10% interest on your FD and inflation was running at 12%. In effect, you were getting 2% negative rate earning. If you get 5%, but inflation is 2.5%, you are having 2.5% real return. So it's still 0.5, 4.5% better than what you would have. But optically, it looks very bad. Oh, interest rates have come down to 5%, 4%. I used to get 10%. So first thing, let's get that perspective in correct. But I know it's not as easy to give all these prophecies, and there is a real life hardship for the people. So two things can happen. One, if it is short-lived, then I hope that everyone for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months can deal with the situation. But the second thing would be that ultimately one would need to diversify across the asset classes, keeping safety in the mind. But if you have to optimize your return, you cannot keep all your eggs in one basket. Then because there is no other easy solution for this. So one will have to look at the avenues where you diversify and try to little bit improve your return on the fund which you are keeping for your use.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. Suchi, I think time is short. If you have questions, maximum 2 questions.
Sir, yeah, sir, 2 quick questions. They are from the audience through the chat box. Sir, one is that India, with its 1.3 billion people, its rural segments largely untapped, and with the Chinese economy, people getting this anti-Chinese, anti-dragon feeling and all, provides a huge base for foreign investments. So in this regard, do you see the regulators relaxing some of the FDI norms and to bring in more investments, and something like maybe allow for acquisition financing or leverage buyouts, anything of that sort, sir?
Okay, very quickly. Number one, on the first thing, yes, there is a lot of things are happening in the globe, and we all know anti-dragon and all that. So maybe I also believe that we would be able to get some share of that, but I would not be placing a lot of bet on that that everything. It will take time. It will take time before that kind of replacement can come. This is business sentiments run only for a day, and then hard facts starts coming. So that is that is a different matter. I don't go into the detail. But and as far as the leverage buyout is concerned, I don't think when already system is grappling with so many problems, I don't think any regulator would at this point of time would be prepared to take another risk rather than dealing with the sitting risk. So at least I don't subscribe to that theory. The only thing, yes, besides the large market and population, India, even in Asia, many countries will still grow better than the rest of the world. And there is a huge liquidity which is floating around in the world because of the various central bank action. So flow is normal to come to India, that is expected. If we have to increase that, to my mind, just to conclude, we need only 2 things to be very careful about. One, consistency of regulation, and second, enforceability of contract in this country. If we get these 2 things right, I think we won't have a problem of attracting the inflow. If we go into the recent incidents, these have been our weaknesses, and we need to correct them.
Noted, sir. Noted. Very pertinent points. So the last question, and obviously this is probably asked in every webinar, and I would like your views on this. Sir, now that it is evident that we have to dwell and live with COVID, sir, how do you see the banks, the regulator, evolving? In your view?
No, see, we have learned few things. We have many more things to learn quite clearly, not only in sense of doing the business, but in a very larger sense. We used to say in last few years, the catchword was that distance is removed, walls are broken, globe has become a village, it is a flat world. I think all those theories are now turned upside down. Distance is back, whether it is distance of doing the meeting with each other, or doing the business, or keeping local giving prominent to local barriers to the trade, money, people, everything. So distance is back. Two things will clearly happen. I think job automation will increase. And if I put it very, specifically for banking sector in a very one sentence, I think on retail side, banks will have to learn to behave like a fintech, and on wholesale side, banks will have to learn to behave like investment banker and bond market blended together. That's the short answer which I can give for that.
Thank you so much, sir. We really and sincerely hope that we had much more time. I know it is not the best of times, it certainly isn't, but I hope it certainly is the worst of time. Of course, it is not a tale of two cities, it is the tale of the entire universe. And we hope we've seen the worst and we are leaving the worst behind us and moving on to a new, bright, and more secure and safe future. Sir, I cannot thank you. Please, sir.
Thank you. No, just I would say, actually, is a watershed moment for any country or regulator. We will have two choices for the government, for the business, for the individual. If we make right choices, it will be even more vibrant world. If we make wrong choices, it will be a world which will be more controlled, more bureaucratic, and slow growth. So I think what choices are made in next 3, 4, 5 months would be very crucial. That's the only thing I can say. Thank you very much. I enjoyed the interaction.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you. My thanks to the entire audience who's been so kind enough to register and attend this course. And one final question, thing before we formally close this. My colleague, Mr. Manish Kaneria, he's the backbone of the organization as far valuations is concerned. He himself has many a degree in valuation and he is also a registered IP professional, having seen through many of the marquee and most difficult and complicated merger transactions in India that has happened in India. He kept silent. He did not give me the opportunity of introducing him, but I thought people should know. Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And Mundra Saab, thank you so much once again.
All the best. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.